So if you don't have a mirror in front of you, you're going to get a portrait of me, which would be a really nice present. I'll also take chocolate-covered potato chips, but I think what you guys really want is a portrait of yourself. So make sure you have that mirror and you can kind of look at yourself, because you can see here from these people, there's different things. And the first thing we're going to start with is sort of this center line here where the two lips come together. And you can see that they can be straight across. They can be dipped in the middle and then angled down. Sometimes they can kind of curve up at the ends. Sometimes they can curve down. And it's all those tiny little subtleties to your portrait that are going to make it look like you. So you have to pay close attention to those things. Again, make sure you have your ground down. If you haven't got a ground, add one. My pencil this morning was sharpened kind of funky, so I got these weird streaks, but I'm not going to worry about it because as I start doing shading and manipulating it, it's probably going to smooth itself out. So I'm going to worry about that later. I just have to make sure that I have something down there in the way of a tone. So the first thing I'm going to do is this is just going to be a lot like the eye, in that we're going to define where the corners of the mouth go. So the mouth is symmetrical. It's not like one side is usually higher than the other. So I'm going to just kind of say, all right, I want the corners of my mouth to end up here. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. So I'm just like making some dots because it's like I'm going to play a game of connect the dots in a minute. The thing that people often do wrong with mouths is that they draw too many lines. So this is going to take us back to our drawing on the right side of the brain when we went through shading that sphere and we shaded everything, and as I went through the sphere, we talked about eliminating lines. So if you look at a finished set of lips, there is a line, but the only line that you can see is going to be the center line. The reason that I see the bottom lip and the top lip is not because there's a line, a black line around it. It's because there's a value shift between here and here. And in fact, if you look really carefully and you want to define a line at all, the line is usually right outside the lips, and sometimes because that part protrudes or sticks out the most, that can actually catch a white line, so we would capture that more with an eraser than we would with a pencil. So like I said, we're going to start with the center line, and it's symmetrical. So I try to kind of really just tackle half, and I'm going to really look at like from the corner and with a relaxed face, not with a smile or anything, what does my mouth do? Does it curve down in the corners? Sometimes, like I said, like this guy here, it curves up a little bit in the corner. And then does it go up or straight across? Like this person's goes straight across. Or do you have like a dip in the top lip or something like that? So I'm going to stop talking and look into my mirror. Just a slight downward turn. Then it goes straight across, and then right here for me it goes up, and then it comes back down, and then it goes up. And like I said, if I get the first half, it pretty much matches on the second half. So it's going to go down. Straight across, and then curve down slightly. So that's this center line. That's what I want to start with. So once I've kind of gotten that center line and it looks pretty symmetrical, then I'm going to figure out where the top and the bottom lip are going to go. Now I'm going to start with the line, but I'm going to blend it in to the shadow. So the first line is going to be sort of indicate this top part of the lips. Some people have like a V shape. Some people have like a U shape. Other people have hardly anything, or it goes straight across. This person's is pretty straight, just a very shallow dip. So you're only kind of looking at that center part there of the lips, and you're trying to figure out not only the shape of it, but how far away is it from that center line? Like, is your bottom lip thicker than your top lip, or sometimes it's reversed and your top lip is thicker than your bottom lip. So I'm making a judgment in terms of placement and shape. So for me, it's more like a V shape. And my top lip, I don't know, I think they're about the same thickness actually. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom. And then again, I think they're about the same. So the bottom of my lip is going to go here. So I'm starting out with a line because it's an indicator, but it's going to get blended in. So that's kind of it with line, and everything else is going to be shading. So the shading will take a while, but that's it with line. So one of the things I want to point out, because as we start to blend in, the first thing I'm going to do is the top lip. And you can look in the mirror, and it doesn't matter, of course, with your light source, but usually the top lip is darker than the lower lip. And that is because as the light usually comes from overhead, it shines down, your lower lip sticks out, so it's going to catch a highlight, and your upper lip kind of goes in, so it's going to catch a shadow. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm not going to add line to this part, I'm going to switch my pencil here, and I'm going to shade the top lip in as a solid mass, no line. And then when I get to the part where I did make a line, I got to make sure that I blend it in. The bottom lip gets a little more difficult. And the reason the bottom lip gets a little more difficult is because there's a shift. But again, this is very similar to what we did with that sphere where the light shifted, and you've got to be looking at the positive and the negative space at the same time. So I'm going to start with the negative space, because usually the reason that I see the lower lip is because, like I said, it sticks out, it protrudes. So when it sticks out like this, then I'm going to see a shadow right underneath it, so from where my chin is. Now, some people's shadow is more prominent than others. It depends on how far your lip sticks out. But so sometimes you just get a very subtle shadow. I get a more pronounced shadow here, but I have to make sure it's soft on the edges. If I make this too much like a shape, it's going to look like I have like a little goatee here, and I don't want that because I don't have one. So I'm not, and if you do have facial hair, we're going to get to that in a minute, so still don't do it. But I'm going to get a soft shadow underneath here, and it kind of curves up around the lower lip, the lower part of the lip, but then it also kind of goes down around the chin. So I'm going to start adding the shape of my chin in too. Super soft, using the side of the pencil, not trying to make this a harsh shape. But just by doing this, do you guys remember when we did fly, win, and I showed you, we did those optical illusions? And I showed you the fly win, and everybody could start, you know, you could see the words, you could see the shapes. This is like that. So just by drawing the negative space, I'm starting to define the positive space. I'm seeing the start of the lip. But then it's going to shift, and I get a highlight here. So it shifts at this point. This is where I have to go from negative space being darker to positive space. And this is that transition you have to work to make smooth. So now I'm going to go back to my positive and try to kind of continue that line. And blend it in. This can take some time. Like I might have to erase and go back and add back in if things start kind of getting muddled and blending together. You can also use your blending stick on this part. But there's no outline. It is all between playing with positive and negative in that transition. And if my center line got a little blended in, I can define it more. You don't just consider drawing the features, but you have to draw how those features, I think this one shows up better. Let me zoom out. How those features actually like fit into your face. So it's about your bone structure, your muscles, your skin, everything around it. So we added a little bit of the chin, and next we're gonna go to this part right here. My students have told me they call this the Cupid's bow. I don't know if that's a scientific term, I'm thinking not, but that's what we're gonna do next. Adding that shadow, again, I said you're gonna have to look in the mirror, right? This, for me, is a V shape. This is more pronounced for me. Some people have very like shallow Cupid's bow, and it's just gonna be a soft shadow. So again, I'm gonna be really careful. The Cupid's bow, this dent in the skin usually does not go all the way down and touch the lips. It doesn't blend into the lips. I have a gap there. And that's that white line. You're going to see that little bit of highlight. So as I do this, again, I'm not doing line. I'm adding with the side of my pencil, and I'm adding the shape. Once again, if you get this shape too harsh, it'll look like facial hair instead of a shadow. So you want soft, blurry edges, which is why I always hold my pencil like this when I'm doing it, instead of like this. And if you're working with a mechanical pencil, it's not that it's impossible, but it's going to take you a lot longer. The next thing I'm going to do is before we go into highlights, I'm just going to finish off other shadows that I see. So if I have shadows by my cheeks, if I want to finish off the chin here and make this more pronounced, it's just making everything kind of fit in. So shadows first, then next we're going to do highlights. So here's the main problem I see when I'm teaching self-portraiture. And when you're in your final, it's kind of like the last thing you have to look at, is that a lot of students get the shadows, but a lot of students don't get the highlights. So if I just have gray and black, I look dirty, like dusty. You know, like in the Peanuts, like the guy Pigpen, he's like got this cloud of dust around him. That's what I feel like it looks like when it's at this level. It's like, okay, but it's not finished. It doesn't have that final pop. I need that contrast. So then I have to go in with the eraser. You can use the one on your pencil, or you can use the bigger one. But this is going to be like yesterday, where it's going to erase, and it's going to be really harsh at first, and then I'm going to have to go back and blend it. But my chin protrudes, that sticks out. So I'm going to get right underneath that shadow, I'm going to get a highlight. My Cupid's bow, for me, because it's a little bit deeper, the ridges right around it. My upper part of my lip sticks out. Right around the Cupid's bow sticks out. So I'm going to erase that. And the reason I say you have to do this last is because if you do this and then you keep drawing and, you know, inevitably your hand kind of smudges it and you end up kind of covering it up. So before you submit your final version, because next week we're going to be working on final drafts, make sure you have white, gray, and black. Need that range of value to make this come to life. So I'm just kind of peeking in my mirror, noticing where I'm seeing those highlights. I am not worrying about how much they blend right now. I'm just identifying them. Oh, one thing I forgot. One thing I forgot with the shadows, which is the corners of the lips. So the corners of the lips, right? They, like when you smile, you see it more dramatically because your muscles pull it back into space. So not only do your corners of your lips sit there, but they're indented a little bit. So I want to soften the edges so that they look a little bit recessed, those like first couple dots, to make it feel like it's kind of going back in space. So I forgot to mention that. So you're going to put that in. Just kind of add some soft corners. I don't want this to look like pointy. So I'm just blending, like making it a little bit blurry. I don't want to see the dots. I don't want them to feel dot-like. So if they look like dots, I got to keep blending. They should feel almost just like a soft indentation. You can use your blending stick too, if they're too dotty. All right, now I've got this splotchy face problem because I did my highlights and my shadows, but I could just see this like weird harsh shape in my chin. So the next thing is just kind of blending it all together. So you can use your blending stick. I do usually start with my pencil and try to blend as much in it with as I can. I kind of work almost like I buff in these so these edges aren't so harsh. And then if I need the blending stick on top of that, I can do that. But I'm trying to create this gradation, the transition from gray to white more naturally, so it feels like a form rather than this blobby shape. Same thing with all the edges. It just takes time. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I put too much gray down again, and then I lose the white, and then I got to go back and erase again. So there's a little bit of back and forth here. You can expect that. And I remember I said I would have these streaks when I started, and so I'm starting to, at this stage, I'm beginning to focus on those and try to get those streaks to disappear too. I also may just go put a pop of a highlight on that lower lip so that it looks kind of shiny in that spot as well.